Thank you again so much for being part of this event. As part of the panel, you were absolutely outstanding. It was great to have you, so thank you. First off, I just want to ask you, obviously this event was all about particularly women, those from a BAME background and their journey into sports journalism and sports broadcasting. So the first question, how did you get into sports journalism?
I got into sports journalism in a very, very different route, I think, than a lot of people who currently work in the field. I was doing a master's in forensic science. That had been my dream for about 10 years up until that point. But I quickly realised that the practical side of the job wasn't something that I was going to enjoy. And so I left my master's course and I thought, what is the only other thing that I like? And the only other thing that I liked was football, and it was writing. So I thought, I need to get some experience of this field. I had no contacts within the field. I have no one in my family who works in media, who works in football. So the first thing I did was I searched for internships online, and I saw that BBC Sport were offering internships particularly aimed at people who had no experience in journalism. I applied for it. I went through 2 rounds of interviews and fortunately got the internship. I was at BBC Sport online for 3 months. And I quickly realised that I really enjoyed everything about the job, you know, including the working on the weekends and working in the evenings. I loved writing for the website for CFAX back then. And so that then led to further internships at The Guardian and The Times. And from there, I was able to really sort of, you know, show employers that I have enough experience. But I also realised I didn't have the qualifications, and I really wanted to be good at the bread and butter sort of elements of the job, the match reporting. And so I undertook an NCTJ long distance course in journalism. I did that while working full time as well, and I also was still doing internships unpaid. Eventually I got the courage to leave my full-time job. I had enough savings by that point as well, and I just started to apply for lots of roles out there, and I just was taking on loads of shifts at different companies. 442 gave me quite a few shifts. I went to Goal, I went to Metro, and then eventually the big opportunity to join the Evening Standard as a reporter covering one of the sort of main London teams came up, and I got the job covering Chelsea. And from there, doing all the digital side of their coverage, including sort of Periscopes, Facebook Lives, that led to TV companies saying, do you want to come on to shows? And that led to further opportunities, and here I am now.
That's amazing. I mean, it sounds like an incredible journey with definitely a lot of highs. Were there any, I wouldn't say lows, but maybe were there any challenges that you faced in your journey throughout sort of the sports industry?
I think the biggest challenge initially was just trying to find enough information to try and steer my career the right way. I didn't have any contacts. I didn't know if I was doing the right things, if this internship was right, if I wanted to even go into broadcasting at the time, because I knew I was good at both, but I didn't know which one I liked more. So that was the biggest challenge, just being informed, not having anyone to really talk to. The second biggest challenge was once I got into the field, I was going to matches regularly, was just trying to deal with how people perceived me, how people reacted to me when I turned up at a press box and I was the only female there. I was the only one from an ethnic minority background there, and, you know, comments that you hear made from different people. It was kind of dealing with all of that and knowing how to respond, responding in an appropriate fashion. So that was one of the biggest challenges when I then got into the field.
Wow, no, and fair play to you. You've done really, really well from it. Okay, so let's look at maybe those that are watching this video, and perhaps some advice for female journalists particularly, or aspiring journalists, those from a BAME background. What advice would you give them if they wanted to make that step into the sports journalist sector?
So I'll give people a piece of advice that was given to me early on in my career. It was, be patient. Don't worry about when you make it, because I think a lot of people are very impatient. They want to be covering a Premier League team now. They want to be working, covering the Champions League now. But make sure that when you make it, you are good, you are knowledgeable, you are informed, and you know your field really well, and you can do everything really well, including the match reports, as well as the presenting to cameras, because, if you are good when you make it and you get that big sort of opportunity, you will rise really quickly. But if you kind of try cut corners, being patient, you may get into the field earlier on, but your talent may not have been honed, and so you may not be able to rise quickly. So I'd say, be good, be patient, be persistent, so you will get a lot of rejection letters. Be persistent and just keep at it.
No, I like that, that's good advice. And finally, last question then. This event was put on in partnership with the Football Writers Association, the FWA, and Snack Media. There aren't many events like this specifically aimed at female aspiring journalists and those from a BAME background. So what would you say about sort of the event that you've experienced today?
I really enjoyed the event. It was my first ever sort of panel event, so it was the first time I was on a panel, and I think it was coming at it from a unique angle. You know, we had the first ever all women panel, and I think having a range of women from different backgrounds within sports journalism, so having broadcasters with newspaper journalists, meant that I think the audience, hopefully, from what I've been told by a lot of them, they really sort of understood the experiences that we've all been through, which are all differing but also are all really similar. And I'm hoping that a lot of the females who came here today who are on sports journalism course, or who just want to get into sport generally, they have been encouraged by the fact that we have made it, we're successful in our field, but also I hope that the males who were here have had their minds broadened to some of the challenges that their female colleagues in the future may go through, and so they're a bit more accepting and understanding of some of the challenges that we face.